Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the ninth day of September. Yes, it's the ninth day, 2021. It's a Thursday, a Jupiter governs magic day. Jupiter's still in retrograde for a little while longer. Saturn goes out first, and then a few days later, I think it's in October. I was looking at the ephemeris yesterday for this month and also next month. I think Mercury goes retrograde. What is it? I'm not sure. It's this month though, toward the end, 20th or 20 something. It goes retrograde. I think. Anyway, I don't remember, but I happened to notice that Saturn and Jupiter are coming out of retrograde about the same time, but Saturn goes out first. So anyway, look for those changes as well. But if you look at the big forecast on the blog over at Stepping Aside, and there's a link below the video to the website. You get the whole thing basically. I portion it out for other things, and I go into more detail on the magical correspondences over on Patreon, in terms of recommendations and all of that. So you get a little more over there, but as far as the bigger forecast, you get the whole thing there on the blog. So anyhow, check that out if you're interested. And let's see, if this is your first time here, welcome. I talk a little bit and shuffle a little bit to get things going, and then we're going to begin with taking a rune from the Elder Futhark bag to start the reading out, and then we'll discover our geomancy rune by throwing down our elemental geomancy runes here. From there's 4 of them. They correspond with fire, air, water, and earth, and that's the order in which, when you throw them down, you're going to put them in to then see what you've got. And then, so we'll do that here in a little bit. As soon as we take a look at the rune here, if they'll stop flowing through my fingers, and the final one is there. Here we go. We have Ansu's Odin's rune, and here we have eloquence and spirit communication. So it's incorporating or invoking spirit into your awareness and into your interactions with other people. Known as Odin's rune because of him being a supposed god, which, you can decide how you feel about that or not. I don't view them that way. I just view them as people that were here at the time that aren't anymore, that left and went back to their own homes. But we're here on planet, I guess, assisting us in our evolution, essentially. So here we have an active influence for fire, active for air, passive for water, and passive for earth, which gives us Fortuna Minor. And I'll show you that. Let's see, this one's major. There's really only 8 runes in the geomancy set, although there's 16 because you're going to be using their complement or opposite. So here we have Fortuna Minor or Minor Fortune. You can think of it as maybe progressive success, where things are happening in stages maybe. Or maybe you're getting, if you are likening it to income, then maybe it's, you're getting like a stipend monthly, or I've used this example before with contractors when they do progress billings along the way, because they can't really pay their crew if they don't, if they wait till the very end, because maybe the job takes 6 months or better. And so if you wait until then, of course, no one's going to get paid. So you have to bill progressively your customer. And, that's just the way that can happen sometimes. So it's that kind of energy today that we're talking about. Now, if we're talking about communication that is invoked by spirit or informed by spirit, then the progressive fortune or the minor fortune there might be, you might see the effect of that over the course of the next few days, of when you take a more spiritual approach to things in terms of your interactions with others, you might see progressive improvement. So as far as minor fortune, you can also think of that in terms of minor improvement, that's progressive in nature. So So let's go ahead then and take a look at the cards for today now. I don't know where my little book is, but it last on Monday's reading, if I recall, it was essentially that we had the Five of Swords. We started out with that, and we discovered that basically there was some kind of deception at work. There was a battle of words, and someone lost, basically, and it looks like someone was really bereft, and another was looking at them and making sure that they're okay or what have you, but they weren't next to them or anything. So the three people depicted in it are just sort of milling about, other than the one who is all too pleased with himself for winning the argument, basically. It could have been winning a legal situation, a legal decision, but it looks like it was done in a way that was sketchy, and maybe with some deception involved. And so ultimately, you have to decide where you're going to go with that, and you're going to have to make your own peace with it. The Hangman was involved. The Moon was also involved in terms of the challenges you face, and that, again, it's not deceiving yourself about what's really going on. And then the benefit was the Four of Swords, and so it's letting your mind come to rest. So in other words, it's almost like a sense of renewal now that you understand what's really going on, and you're no longer trying to see things in a better light than what they truly are. I realize that we always want to put a positive spin on things, but when you have someone that does that all the time, it just drives you nuts, because they can't really understand the true impact of what's going on. They're so focused on doing that. And I think that's what the Moon in the challenge position was telling us, that we don't want to be so caught up in that we can't see the forest for the trees. It's fine to put a positive spin on things, but not at the expense of truth, and especially if something's truly affecting you. So that was where I think we left that. So let's go ahead, now that we know we have a spirit communication sort of lead in here, or governing influence here. Let's go ahead and see what our cards are. We'll take the first three, and then usually, again, if you haven't been here before, the third card seems to sort of align with an outcome oftentimes. But we'll just see. So we start with the Ace of Swords, continuing the theme from Monday a little bit. New ideas. And again, it aligns well with Ansu's, because you've got the crown, and which is basically spirit, or the creator, influencing your perceptions here. So I think it aligns well with Ansu's the Rune, which is good. It's when it's like, oh God, what does that have to do with anything? It's one of those moments. It's like, oh geez. How do I interpret that? Because this is all done on the fly, basically. It's like akin to a cold reading. Here we have the Nine of Wands, where, to me, I have always the nine is about endings and completion. So whatever thing has gone on here has come to an end. You also see the line of demarcation here. That was then, and this is now, so it indicates that whatever was going on, the conflict, that was likely conflict, is over, because you see the bandage on his head. You see possibly one here on his arm as well. But what he's looking back furtively. Supposedly, traditional interpretations of his card seem to suggest that he's got support behind him, but does he? Is he really sure? After everything that's happened, does he really? Or are we talking about, he doesn't, in other words, from Monday, we don't want to deceive ourselves in thinking that there's truly support there. And yet we also don't want to reject support if it is there. So an end to something here. And either the look back of, are we really done? Are you really supporting me? It's that kind of feeling that I always get from that card. And again, if the Ace of Swords has any power at all, maybe his furtive glance is perception based and really isn't. He doesn't have the ability to trust yet. In other words, the Ace of Swords, especially when it's pointed up to spirit, you're talking about justice, and you're talking about a higher sense of that, not one born of ego. And so I suspect that we're going to have to figure out a way maybe to balance ego with the truth of spirit, maybe, but we'll see. Well, okay. Another swords card, the Ten of Swords. I really think that this is a shift in perception reading, is what I think this is going to be. Here you've got some, I know this looks bad, but it's not. Anyway, we have a 10 here, numerology. So really you're looking at full completion and the beginning of something new. It's really a Degas moment. If you were to take, in fact, here, let me just draw this out for you so you can see it. Hopefully I can find... Well, I don't know where my pen is. Well, I'll try this pencil. See if you can see it. So when you see the 10, I don't want to write it that way. It's in the Roman numeral. Okay, you have basically the X for the 10. Now, if you were to terminate the ends, look what you have. You have Degas. So in a sense, the number 10 really signals the end of one phase and the beginning of another one. And so in a very real sense, it's akin to the Degas rune in the Elder Futhark. And so what you have here, you see the Knight above, lifting. You don't see the sun yet, but you see evidence of it. You see the golden color, the yellow colored sky there above the mountains there. The water is very smooth, and so emotions are at rest. So is the body, and it cannot go any further. You've got 10 swords piercing the back of this man on the ground. And he's just gone as far as he can go. Now, if we want to liken him to this guy, we might be able to do that. But you're talking the suit of fire here versus the suit of, or rather the element of fire versus the element of air governing. Fire governs wands, air governs swords. And so perhaps, given that we have the ace here and the 10 here, we can look at that either as a 2 energy, or we can look at that as an 11 energy. We can look at it that way. And I think that we need to do that given that we start out with the Ace of Swords. To me, the aces hold as much power as any of the major arcana cards, because it holds all of the essence of the suit in that one card. But here, we're going to go back and look at that here. But I think what we have here on either end, I think this is giving us an 11 energy, so the master number for awakening and illumination. The struggle is over. Perceptions are shifting about how we see that. We see a hand reaching out from the cloud. The ace is in the Rider-Waite, I'll do this, irrespective of the suit. So from the void of creation, or from the soul, then the soul reaches out with some spiritual truth here to cut through the ego's nonsense that the ego wants to create. The ego is the lower vibrational energy of self and form. It's the perceptual side of self that can get us into so much trouble when we jump to conclusions, when we believe things that are just not true, when we are drawn into, as a lot of people are right now, into conspiracy-oriented things that, it's one thing if you're trying to figure out that something has happened, and now you're going to try and figure out what that was. You're going to throw a lot of ideas. There's going to be a lot of investigations. Some of it is going to yield nothing because it's just stuff you find out, and it really doesn't have anything to do with what happened. It's just, something that you learn along the way when you're looking into something and trying to figure it out. But at the end of the day, there is some fundamental truth that we need to cling to, and we need to rise to, and we need to be aware of. justice is an issue right now, and the Ace of Swords is basically saying, look, there's a higher truth to all of this that we need to pay attention to, and when we do, then the conflict can be over if we let go of perceptions that no longer serve. Now, just so you know, when you do a reading, you can move these cards around to make them make sense, but I think I'm going to leave this as it is, because I think we can understand the flow of this even without doing that. But again, if we, from Monday's reading, if we understood the challenge the moon gave us, I was really reading it as self-deception. And again, now we see with the Ten of Swords that we're letting go of that. And we're trying to trust the process here with the Nine, that the end of the conflict is over. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone today is going to get their vaccination and stop, harassing children and staff at schools and hospitals. It's not that that's going to happen. I doubt that very seriously, but that could be coming to you. There may be more and more people as the cause and effect nature of things is understood. And that's another aspect of Swords, is understanding the cause and effect nature of things. Maybe people will start to understand that, no, we can't harm our children this way. Letting them go into schools where they're not masked, or some aren't, or this is ridiculous. See, we're in this period of ridiculousness, and where ego is trying to overpower spirit. Now, it's not going to happen, but because it never does, but things can be challenging, during that process. So then if we have the 11 numerology and then the 9, again, we're bringing this back to, if we brought this down to 2, if we'd reduce the 10 to 1, 1 and 1 is 2, plus 9, we have 11 again, you see. So I really think that there's a level of awakening here brought about by at least the Ace of Swords. Let's look at the challenge card, though. We'll take the 13th one. Well, okay. The Eight of Swords. Oh, isn't this just an amazing thing? The moon on Monday told us, again, not to allow self-deception to get in the way. Here, we're not going to let perception get in the way. But in other words, the Eight of Swords is the strength to ignore. 8 is the number of strength. And the strength to ignore all of the perceptions either around you, trying to influence you, or your own perceptions that are no longer serving you. You've got to let go of them. She's bound and she's blindfolded. So you can either interpret this as bound by your own perceptions, and that would be the challenge, to not allow that to happen, or to ignore the noise around you, to ignore the conspiracy, especially if you're somebody who's chosen, I guess, to believe things that there's really no basis for. There's no proof for. And if there is no proof for it, then how do you know? It isn't that the overall concerns there aren't valid. To be concerned about mind control and trafficking and all of that, but when you realize that in fact you're a victim of it yourself, then you realize that it's time to ignore the noise around you and to let go of perceptions that no longer serve, because that's what I believe is happening. That all of this stuff that they're believing is furthering on the agenda of some very powerful people that want to have control, want to have power, but it's not really theirs to have. It's done by dividing everyone. It's done by, it's the whole divide and conquer. aspect of things, that they talk about. And I think that, honestly, I think that that's what we're really dealing with here. Um, I mean, could you have ever believed that there are people, parents, who don't think that their children should be protected here from the virus because they don't believe it's real? Even when people die in their families, they still don't. They still don't get it. So I don't know what to say about that. Something to me is, and I said this, I either said this in the correspondences videos I do Monday through Friday, or I said it on Monday. I don't remember now, but the idea that there is some greater force at work that's forcing us to see the truth of things in a really, really difficult way. But maybe that's what's necessary now. Maybe that's what's required for people to wake up, because there's no time left. That's how it feels to me. There's no time left. We've got to wake up now, now, now. That kind of experience here. And I just think that you start to see these greater forces coming into play, and you can't ignore them. You just can't. And because it's when things don't make sense at all anywhere that you've got to take a look at, okay, what's the real message here? What am I supposed to take from this? And you've got to get out of the reactive mode. You've got to come above that. You've got to rise above it. You've got to raise your vibrational energy to where you can get out of ego and basically transmute ego into spirit and look at things from that standpoint, which is what Ansus is telling us to do here today. Well, the Knight of Pentacles is the benefit. If we can do that, then we can move on together in shared purpose and a shared direction. The wealth of tradition. This is really, to me, a card that aligns with Athala, which is about our tradition and our ancestral heritage, and it's a shared set of experiences that we have. That seems to be forgotten right now, at least by some of us. And that's the challenging part. It's like you look at it and you go, what on earth is this? Nobody understands this thing that's happening. But the bottom line is you have to look beneath the surface to figure out, okay, what's really going on here? Because this is the distraction. So who's pulling the strings and why? That's the question that has to be asked in what's going on here. And I really think that with this 11 master number moving through this reading today, that's what we have. So again, we see the strength of the horse and the I mean he's not a workhorse, but he has a very strong presence. And with his rider, with the knight, you see somebody who's on a quest to reestablish our traditions, if you will, in a shared fashion, going in a new direction, a positive direction. So I think that's it. I think that what we need to understand going forward is that to understand what's going on around us here that seems so bizarre and violent and scary at times. I think that we need to understand that there's something greater going on here that's manifesting that, and that what you see there, it's almost just like they're people that are being so controlled that they just go out and do all of these things that are against their own self-interest and the self-interest of other people. And we have to awaken from that. We have to realize those people that are involved in that need to understand that they're being used and manipulated by some other force that's more nefarious, that simply wants power and is going to do it by any means possible, which means to try to stimulate the fear that people have about one thing or another, and then they capitalize on it. Okay, the concerns that some in our country have had about all these things that they think are going on. Well, they may be in some fashion, but the stimulation that they're getting to act on whatever this is it seems chaotic. There's nothing organized about it. There's nothing, and that's the point of it. Okay, the point is to create chaos, to create upset, so that nobody knows what's really going on and nobody knows what they're really trying to accomplish. I think all you have to do is look at how difficult it is to get one side of the government of the Congress to support positive things for the people. Because if you support the positive things for the people, then maybe the corporations aren't quite so important, or they take on a different form, right? And that doesn't suit them. So I really think that this is about people with a whole lot of money that are trying to control some kind of outcome here for themselves, and they're doing it at the expense of everyone else. The people that are out there being harmful, and the rest of us that are just standing there going, okay, do I need to just stay home now and not ever come out of my house? I mean, in other words, it's shifting our behavior in a way that suits someone else who's controlling all of this. See, the former guy got into office not in the way we think. So whatever happened there was by design, again, by the powers that control him, to then get him to do what they need to have done. You see? And I really think that that's what's going on here. Now, in time, we're going to probably find out a whole lot more about that, but I think that's what's happening. So just keep that in mind, and see if some of that doesn't resonate when you take a step back and try to figure out, okay, what about my own perceptions here are keeping me bound to something that no longer serves. And to get out of the way of either the perceptions of others, to close your eyes to that and don't react to it anymore, and to move forward in something that's new and healthy and fosters something shared between all of us, instead of this trying to harm one another business that's going on with some people in our country. It isn't everyone, obviously. It's not even half. But it's enough that it causes a whole lot of disruption, and that has to stop. The idea that we all feel now that we're being held hostage by that group of people, we are. But what do? We need we need additional support there. So hopefully in time we'll start to see that happen, and we'll be able to get through this and finally come back together in some kind of a shared purpose, which is what we need to be doing. So anyhow, thanks for watching. Have a good week, the rest of the week, and come back for Esoteric Influences on Sunday, and look for the forecast and today and tomorrow on the blog. Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune next week on Monday and Thursday. Correspondences from Work and Magic Monday through Friday on YouTube, and also a more in-depth version of it over on Patreon. And if you've got smoky conditions like we do, please wear protection when you go outside, when you're working in your yard, and stay safe from that. So in any event, have a good day, be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.